Hello and welcome to Reporters on France 24. This week, we're looking at the U.S.'s crucial role in fighting terrorism in the Sahel at a time when the Trump administration is considering pulling troops out of Africa. Joining me now is Fanny Allard, who made this report in West Africa. Fanny, the Trump administration has made no secret of its desire to withdraw from the continent, though that final decision has yet to be made. But what do you think is the reasoning behind such a possibility? Is it mostly about budget cuts?
No, actually, it's not really a budget issue. The US gives $45 million a year to the Sahel Alliance, while the budget of the Pentagon is $800 billion a year. So it's not that significant for the most powerful army in the world. No, the very reason Donald Trump wants to leave Africa is because he's running for re-election. And remember, he promised to bring the boys back home and finish those so-called endless wars. So Africa seems like the easiest place to start with. What everyone fears here in Washington, D.C., in Paris and in Africa is a repeat of northern Syria when Donald Trump had abruptly decided to withdraw US troops.
Fanny, thank you very much. And now let's watch her report from West Africa.
Si les Américains décidaient de se retirer d'Afrique, ce serait une mauvaise nouvelle pour nous, je vous le confirme.
So I think it's time for other European allies to assist as well in the region, and that could offset whatever changes we make as we consider next steps in Africa.
Toute personne qui peut nous aider vraiment à éradiquer le terrorisme, il n'y a pas de problème. La personne est bienvenue.
In the Sahel, these violent extremist groups represent a threat not just to this region, but across the continent, even reaching out to many other parts of the world.
A secure, prosperous, and stable Africa is an enduring American interest.
On se rejoint avec les Américains. On combat un ennemi commun.
The government, Secretary Esper, they make the decisions. We follow the decisions made by the President of the United States.
No comments on anything because, first of all, no decisions have been made.
Senegal, the gateway to West Africa, where the U.S. Army has been leading wide-ranging counter-terrorism training efforts. It's sharing its combat techniques with troops from 30 African countries. Among them are members of the G5 Sahel Joint Force, Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Chad, and Burkina Faso. It covers an area of about 5 million square kilometers where terrorist organizations have been gaining ground. In the past 18 months, terrorist strikes in the region have increased steadily. About 800 attacks and 2,600 deaths have been reported, and those numbers have been doubling every year since 2015. It's a situation these soldiers know all too well. They're from Dori, in the north of Burkina Faso, a region marred by violence.
Les distances sont très importantes. Comme vous savez, voilà, c'est proche là, rafale là, et puis c'est parti. Donc il faut respecter les distances, c'est très important.
Lieutenant Dauda leads a combat section tasked with tracking down extremist groups active in Burkina Faso. For him, the training provided by U.S. instructors is crucial.
On est en train de perfectionner de plus en plus, quoi. Voilà, il y a des connaissances que nous n'avions utilisant. Donc, voilà, quand on va combiner les deux, on aura quelque chose d'encore de meilleur. Voilà, c'est toujours comme ça.
But while the terrorist threat keeps growing in the Sahel, the U.S. may be on its way out of the region and even Africa as a whole. U.S. troops currently act in support of African forces. They provide logistical help as well as training. These instructors belong to the U.S. Special Forces, which is why we had to hide their faces.
Comment allez-vous?
Ouais, ça va bien.
Ça va bien?
Ouais, ça va bien.
Comment est-ce que l'entraînement aujourd'hui?
Ouais, c'est bien passé.
C'est bon?
Ah, c'est bon, on a bien débuté. On a déjà appris beaucoup de choses déjà.
J'ai vu aussi la capacité de votre soldat est augmentée avec l'entraînement. Les Américains, nous sommes contents pour votre participation aussi.
Nous sommes contents aussi.
Captain Nate is supervising this training session. Flanked by a communications officer, he avoids commenting on a possible U.S. withdrawal to focus on how they are currently helping.
It's a policy thing.
Yeah, talk about the training.
I could say the training and then
Hit on the overall training and then
can I say build capacity for the fight? Okay. The training we provide builds capacity for them for when they go back to their own countries to hopefully have an increased level of proficiency in the fight against violent extremist organizations on the continent.
Captain Nate is part of the U.S. Army's 3rd Special Forces Group. Less than 3 years ago, soldiers from the 3rd SFG were killed in a terrorist attack in Niger, known as the Tongo Tongo ambush. On October 4th, 2017, during a recon mission north of the capital Niamey, 11 U.S. soldiers and 35 Nigerians were attacked by about 50 well-organized insurgents. Caught off guard by the terrorists' firepower, the U.S. convoy tried to flee, but the last vehicle got caught. These images were filmed by a camera worn by one of the U.S. soldiers. Overpowered in number and firepower, they were killed one by one. The camera was later pulled off the dead U.S. soldier's body by the terrorists, who then used the video for propaganda. The rest of the group made it out alive, rescued by French helicopters. That attack shocked Americans and forced the Pentagon to clarify its presence in Africa, especially with Donald Trump eager to bring troops home and put an end to the so-called endless wars started by his predecessors. A U.S. withdrawal would have huge implications for France and its allies, so Paris is using every last resource of its diplomatic arsenal to prevent U.S. troops from leaving the Sahel. Recently, the French defense minister was in Washington to make France's case to her American counterpart.
The U.S. support is critical to our operations and that its reduction would severely limit our effectiveness against terrorists. Our friends in the Sahel are in a situation where our assistance is critical, and I have expressed the hope that both the United States and France will keep on supporting them. It's a classic case of burden sharing, where a limited U.S. support leveraged an immense effort carried out by France and Europe.
The U.S. Army is widely seen as the most powerful in the world. About 200,000 U.S. troops are currently deployed abroad, but only 6,000 of them in Africa. That's just about 3% of U.S. military capacity, but it's still too much for the Trump administration.
We are focused on great power competition with China, then Russia. As I look at that strategy, my aim is to free up time, money, and manpower around the globe where we currently are, so that I could direct it toward either that region, or secondly, return forces to the United States to prepare to become more ready, to improve their readiness.
For France, however, jihadist groups are the immediate threat, one that it believes affects all of the world's major powers. And Florence Parly's diplomatic efforts towards the U.S. are about making that clear while buying time.
Il était important que nous puissions exposer les enjeux, notamment liés au maintien de ce soutien américain, mais de façon plus générale, ce que nous attendons dans les prochains mois, les objectifs que nous nous sommes fixés et la manière dont nous pensons les atteindre. Je pense que cela éclairera utilement la décision que les États-Unis prendront un jour ou l'autre.
France's diplomatic fight in Washington is crucial to its fight against terrorists on the ground in the Sahel, known as Operation Barkhane. It's France's largest ongoing military operation, with more than 5,000 soldiers deployed in the region to fight extremist groups. Intelligence plays a key role in this fight. That's why the French army has 3 Reaper drones it bought from the US. These unmanned aircrafts are both combat and observation tools that can fly over an area for more than 20 hours and drop up to 4 bombs weighing 250 kilos each.
14 secondes instantanées, j'ai lock. C'est bon pour moi.
The US Army has more than 200 of these drones, and for Major Nicolas, it's very clear that the Reapers are extremely important for their operations.
En vol, on peut arriver à être coordonné avec un avion américain qui travaille dans la même zone que nous. Donc on va pouvoir lui parler à la radio, lui demander de suivre tel ou tel objectif militaire. Par exemple, si vous avez un split d'objectifs, si vous avez un convoi par exemple de plusieurs motos et que ça se sépare, l'avantage d'avoir un autre MQ-9 ou un autre avion américain de renseignement, c'est qu'il va pouvoir suivre l'un pendant que vous suivez l'autre. Donc ça permet quand même d'avoir une force plus importante en termes de renseignement et de suivi des objectifs militaires.
The military targets he's talking about are jihadist groups, which are often hard to find as they hide among civilians. And with just 3 drones, France can only monitor a tiny part of the immense Sahel.
Ouais, on va se rapprocher. Il y a de la moto au sud. Ouais, la moto, ça bouge.
Not only does the US have more of these drones, but American drones also have a unique feature, a powerful communications interceptor to listen in on enemy radio and phone transmissions, intelligence that is crucial to the French.
Le renseignement obtenu par les Américains remonte un étage au-dessus pour après nous être rediffusé sur les éléments qui sont vraiment importants pour nous. Soit directement en vol, soit sur les missions du lendemain.
The jihadists present in the Sahel belong both to Al-Qaeda and to the Islamic State group, 2 terrorist organizations that are rivals in the Middle East but work together in Africa. For General Fekun, the commander of Operation Barkhane, preventing these extremist hotspots from spreading is a national security issue for democracies around the world.
On combat un ennemi qui est le porteur d'un système totalitaire, qui fonctionne sur la base de la peur, de la violence et de l'endoctrinement. De ce point de vue, on se rejoint avec les Américains. On combat un ennemi commun. Et l'État islamique au Grand Sahara, même si ce n'est pas Daesh au Levant, c'est une preuve de vie de l'existence de cette idée d'État islamique. Donc c'est un ennemi commun que nous combattons avec les Américains et c'est ce qui fait d'ailleurs toute la pertinence de leur action à nos côtés.
With a possible US withdrawal in sight, France is ramping up its efforts. In February, 220 extra soldiers were deployed in the Sahel, bringing the total number of French troops to more than 5,000, while 6 more drones are expected to land in Niger by the end of the year. Despite its increased efforts, France cannot win this fight alone. Operation Barkhane gets half of its intelligence from its US ally, a crucial asset the Sahel alliance can simply not do without.
Vous pouvez prendre le cap ouest pour maintenir les 30 nautiques nord du point.
Cap ouest.
Confirme silhouette.
Somewhere over the vast desert region of Liptako-Gourma, at the crossroads of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, Lieutenant Colonel Michael and his team are on a refueling mission. They are flying a C-135, a tanker that can carry up to 55 tons of fuel to transfer to fighter jets.
La mission de nos chasse aujourd'hui, c'est de surveiller un convoi et d'assurer la sécurité. Ensuite, la deuxième partie, c'est de montrer leur présence pour assurer la sécurité des troupes maliennes au sol et d'intervenir en cas de besoin.
Refueling is an extremely delicate maneuver carried out at 600 kilometers an hour, often in difficult weather conditions.
Et vous pouvez accélérer à 300 nœuds.
C'est parfait, on accélère. On passe 2 tonnes. On va suivre.
Without refueling aircrafts, these French fighter jets would only be able to fly for about an hour and a half. This means tankers are a crucial part of the war taking place in the Sahel, whether it's in the air or on the ground.
2 mètres, 1 mètre, contact.
In 10 minutes, the tanker transfers more than 2 tons of fuel.
L'avion est plein pour déconnecter.
It's a mission French forces share with their American counterparts. The U.S. provides a third of the logistical support for Operation Barkhane.
Le rôle des Américains, c'est de nous aider dans notre effort de soutien sur les combats, notamment en nous fournissant des avions ravitailleurs. Les États-Unis, depuis de nombreuses années, sont l'un de nos plus précieux alliés. Nous sommes engagés à leur côté ou eux à nos côtés sur quasiment tous les théâtres d'opération. Et leur présence rassure et incite nos alliés à s'engager à nos côtés.
This flight lasted about 6 hours, refueling the fighter jets 3 times. 20,000 feet below, intense fighting was taking place between Allied forces and jihadists. On the ground, the shooting had died down but was picking up again. The French fighter jets were ready to strike. We will not know more. The pilot cut our communication channel for security reasons.
Sol. Freinage.
The U.S. Army has more than 400 of these tankers. Without their help, the French Army would have to use its whole fleet of refueling aircrafts in the Sahel, jeopardizing other operations.
Je pense qu'il est important de garder ce lien en termes de coopération et de continuer à travailler avec eux parce que, encore une fois, ce sont nos principaux alliés. Leur force est vraiment complémentaire de la nôtre concernant cette mission-là parce qu'ils nous permettent d'assurer une permanence sur zone bien plus importante. Et on a vraiment l'habitude de coopérer et du coup, cette coopération se fait vraiment facilement parce qu'on parle vraiment d'égal à égal dans toutes les opérations dans lesquelles nous pouvons participer.
The U.S. Air Force also helps transport troops. This American aircraft takes off from Niamey several times a week to fly them to different ground operations.
The first one. And so it's already, I looked at the tag and it's already the 2312 is right there. So we should be good. That's perfect.
In between flights, these American soldiers look for something to bring back home.
Right?
Ah non, 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 on vient d'arriver.
I have that. I was looking for one like this, maybe.
No luck today for this American corporal. The newly arrived French soldiers are part of a troop surge announced by President Emmanuel Macron in January. By sending an extra 600 soldiers, France wanted to lead by example and show the US that the war on terror must continue. But for the Trump administration, Africa is far from a priority when it comes to national defense, falling behind the Pacific, Europe, and the Middle East. And Washington is hoping to drastically cut the budget for the U.S. Africa Command by the end of the year.
It's a myth. If we withdrew, everything would crumble. I mean, it's a disservice to our African partners to say that they couldn't do it without what's going on. But like I said, they're a very strong force. They're out there every day fighting terrorism. Every country doing a little bit, you know, to fight against terrorism will make us successful in the long run.
U.S. soldiers know how important their presence is in Africa, but they are not the ones making these decisions.
Do you think that the French can't win without the U.S. against terrorism?
To the point of what it's going to look like, I can't talk about. The government, Secretary Esper, they make the decisions. We follow the decisions made by the President of the United States.
Decisions that are sometimes hard to read, making it difficult to know when the order to leave Africa will actually be confirmed and implemented. What's certain is that a U.S. withdrawal would further weaken these soldiers from Burkina Faso, whether in combat or in training.
C'est une localité où il y a beaucoup de bâtiments, une zone urbaine qu'on doit traverser. Voilà, une ville, la traversée d'une ville.
Ça arrive souvent, ça, que vous fassiez ça dans la réalité?
Ah oui, ça arrive souvent. Ça arrive souvent. Voilà, je vais traverser une zone dangereuse et on est obligé d'appliquer cette formation.
For Lieutenant Dauda, eradicating terrorism will only be possible through the action of the coalition, coupled with a political solution.
Dans cette lutte, tout le monde est important. L'objectif, c'est de lutter contre le terrorisme, voilà, de nous débarrasser de ce fléau. Voilà. C'est-à-dire que ce n'est pas forcément sur le plan militaire seulement, mais sur plusieurs plans. Voilà. Peut-être que c'est les zones où vraiment les gens sont pauvres. C'est vrai que l'Afrique est pauvre aussi. Voilà. Si vous voyez que ça prend de l'ampleur, c'est pas que l'Afrique peut-être est pauvre. Donc il y a des jeunes qui s'en donnent à ça parce qu'on les promet de l'argent et tout ça. Voilà. Donc je me disais que si on arrivait à lutter contre la pauvreté, réellement, tout ça prendra fin, naturellement.
While this war directly impacts countries in the Sahel, it also affects neighboring states like Nigeria, Ghana, or even Senegal, which shares a 419-kilometer-long border with Mali. In Muslim-majority Senegal, leaders worry Islamist ideology could take hold, and they are counting on the U.S. to prevent that from happening.
Aujourd'hui, plus que jamais, l'Afrique est confrontée à des défis majeurs liés à l'insécurité et au terrorisme et a besoin des États-Unis d'Amérique qui sont un allié stratégique pour un retour définitif à la paix et à la stabilité.
The U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is watching the continent closely. He traveled to the Senegalese capital, Dakar, to sign economic agreements, knowing an unstable continent could jeopardize the U.S.'s commercial ties with its African allies.
Nous souhaitons que les Américains soient présents dans la zone. Nous souhaitons que les Américains continuent de nous aider dans le domaine de la sécurité. Nous souhaitons que les Américains continuent de nous aider dans le domaine de la formation, dans le domaine du renseignement.
Mike Pompeo remained vague about a possible U.S. troop withdrawal from Africa. Instead, he insisted on one message: there can be no economic development without security.
We'll get it right. We'll get it right collectively. I'm convinced of that. And I don't have any announcement to make, but I think the people of Senegal should know that collectively, Senegalese forces in the region, European partners, French and United States of America, we have an obligation to get security right here in the region. It's what will permit economic growth, and we're determined to do that. And I'm convinced that when our review is done, we'll have a conversation with not just Senegal, but all the countries in the region. We'll talk through why we're doing, how we're doing it, and we'll deliver an outcome that works for all of us.
The U.S. contributes about $45 million in financial aid to the G5 Sahel, a sliver of the U.S.'s annual defense budget of about $800 billion. The headquarters of the G5 Sahel Joint Force is in Niamey, the capital of Niger. No journalists have been allowed here until now. 3 years ago, command was located in Menaka in Mali, but it was the target of a terrorist attack that killed 3 soldiers. Since then, its exact location has been kept secret. Officers from all 5 members of the Sahel Alliance are present alongside French and American officers. That day, they were discussing how to reach out to civilian populations.
Est-ce qu'ils ont des vétérinaires?
Oui, bien sûr.
Des militaires?
Alors, nous, force Barkhane, on a.
Oui.
Après, il faudrait poser la question.
Oui.
Hein?
Pas de personnel militaire, mais comme nous travaillons avec les populations civiles, nous pouvons prendre la tâche avec eux pour qu'ils puissent nous appuyer dans ces actions.
Question, parce que dans notre militaire, chez nous aux États-Unis, nous avons des vétérinaires armés, on peut dire, de l'armée. Est-ce que ça existe? Ok. Comment on va diviser ça?
Est-ce que toi, tu aurais la possibilité d'avoir une carte avec la présence d'ONG sur place?
Oui.
Oui, d'accord.
On va voir.
Ok, très bien. Comme ça, on oriente directement les patrouilles dans cette direction.
Major Keith is the link between the G5 and the U.S. Africa Command, relaying requests from the Sahel Joint Force. His superiors denied our request for an interview, and Major Keith is sticking to that decision. You really can't answer any of my questions? The U.S. Army remains tight-lipped about its activity in Africa. And with Donald Trump facing re-election this year, there is no desire to highlight the presence of U.S. troops in the Sahel. The French, on the other hand, are very open about how important U.S. support is.
Le rôle des Américains, il est assez simple. Ici, en Afrique, les Français sont menants. Les Américains sont concourants. Ils concourent à quoi? Ils concourent à nous donner des moyens logistiques et des moyens de renseignement qui nous sont utiles pour nous et qui nous facilitent énormément de travail. Si les Américains partent, on va continuer à remplir notre mission, mais ça sera plus difficile. C'est pour ça qu'on souhaite qu'ils restent.
The U.S. Army knows that leaving the continent could mean paving the way for terrorist groups and abandoning its allies, be they French or African. But in the White House, the president seems to have decided that the war on terror is no longer the U.S.'s job, at least in Africa. That's it for this edition of Reporters. You can catch it again on our website at france24.com. Thank you for watching. Do stay tuned for more news coming right up.